Welcome to Resume Well. We're exposing the intersection of wellness, woo, and work. We've been told that the antidote to professional burnout is personal wellness, and sometimes that means confronting our inner skeptic and exploring the taboo anyway. This season, we're all about putting our intuition to work at work. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Resume Well. I'm Courtney Page. I am your host. I am the founder and principal of Resume Executive Search and Development. We work a lot in software, in wellness, and even construction and engineering. And we place people in roles, right? So we are headhunters and we also work as executive coaches. So that is who I am. That is what I do. And I am the host of Resume Well. And as you know, this season, we are still looking at careers, but we are looking at them really in the wellness industry or how wellness impacts your career. So in this episode, I'm very excited about, and I know I say that a lot, but I'm very excited about this episode because I think it ties in really well with the September theme and the new beginnings theme, because the topic is so top of mind all of the time, at least for me. And that might just be because of the work I do. But I think right now is such a good time to focus in and learn either more about or refine our skills in manifestation. Yes. So manifestation. We've had some other episodes on manifestation. So we will absolutely link those in the show notes. If you haven't listened to them before, please go and listen to them. We've had some guests talk about it. But I wanted to talk about it just by myself with you guys today. And I want to talk about it with intuition in mind because they work together. And both of those terms, manifestation and intuition, are these two kind of like woo wellness terms that we know they go together, but maybe we're not really sure exactly how closely they work together and how much they rely on each other. And if you've ever tried to manifest something in your life and it hasn't happened, or if you're like, yeah, that's great. Everybody talks about how intuition is really helpful, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to recognize it because sometimes I think it's just like anxiety or fear or maybe manifestation. Maybe it's not actually what I think it is. Maybe that's just like this desire for something and it is that manifestation. There's a lot of confusion around it. And if you've ever tried to manifest something that hasn't come true, or if you're like, I followed my intuition and it didn't work, this is the episode because so many of us have been in that scenario. And I think it is really, really important to understand what each of them are separately and how they work together. And I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me this summer. And it was like the universe slapped me across the face and was like, this is it. This is how it works together. Here you go. Just in case you were losing faith, here you go. So it is crazy. It's a crazy story. Everybody that I tell this story to gets goosebumps. I get goosebumps when I tell it. So let's go. Let's get into it. Okay. So you have heard about trusting your gut. I know you've heard about that. And you've heard about following your inner voice. Yes. And you've probably heard about like creating your reality or manifesting your dream life. And it's kind of obvious that they go together. But if you're not exactly sure how or why, keep listening. So let's quickly go over what both of these terms actually mean. Let's define them. Intuition is believed to stem from the subconscious mind processing information from past experiences, knowledge, and environmental cues. So it's basically your subconscious mind filtering out information and processing information from all of your past experiences, all of the knowledge that's floating around in your mind that is seemingly random or not, and your external environmental cues. So that's kind of, the fight or flight, or if you notice, when you're driving that someone is about to turn, but they might not have their blinker on, but you're like, I can tell they're about to turn, right? Just environmental cues. Manifestation, different. Manifestation is the process of bringing a specific goal, desire, or outcome into reality through a combination of thought, belief, emotion, and action. Okay, so this is how they work together. Listen closely. Manifestation, which I will repeat, is the process of bringing a specific goal, desire, or outcome into reality through a combination of thought, belief, emotion, and action. Very important, action. manifestation is pointless if you don't know where you want to go. And I'm going to tell you something. Most people don't know where they want to go. They think they do, but they don't. A map is useless if you don't know where you want to go. And it's useless if you don't know where north is, right? Think of manifestation as the map. Intuition is the compass. It will guide you where you want to go if you can read it correctly. Okay, so why is it so hard to recognize intuition? Something very, very unique to humans and can be life-saving in a lot of scenarios, especially back in caveman days, right? But why is it so hard for us to recognize intuition? So I did a little bit of research on this, and the main thing is that it's just so subtle. Sometimes intuition can be so subtle that it can come across as this like fleeting thought or feeling, and it's very, very easy to dismiss it or just completely miss it. Confusion also it can be confusing to process what intuition is in conjunction with, what logic tells you to do, or if you have anxiety, or, if you have just a lot going on, it's really hard to kind of decipher what is intuition and what is something else, right? There's also, I think it would be remiss not to mention that there is a societal emphasis on logic. A lot of cultures prioritize rational thinking over intuitive feeling, and that leads people to discount or just completely ignore their intuition, which we've kind of been conditioned to do because logic tends to, win out in a lot of scenarios, or so it seems. And it has primed us to ignore our intuition, which might be why we're ignoring it, right? So that's another reason. Speed, intuitive thoughts, intuitive insights often happen very, very quickly before the conscious mind can really kind of catch up. So again, it's easy to just miss it. And this is, I think, the biggest one, self-doubt. People question their own judgment all the time. And intuition, when it's something that is seemingly so flimsy or just not logical, or that it just contradicts a lot of our conditioned expectations, it's so easy to dismiss it. So people question their own judgment, especially when intuition contradicts external information or expectations. That self-doubt, man, it'll get you every time. And I think also we have to talk about sensory overload. We have shit coming at us all the time. We have social media, we have our boss, we have emails, we have, you know, app notifications for like every type of app there could possibly be. There is one, and we get all of those notifications. And that's a lot. And in an information rich world, intuitive signals get lost in the noise of all of this constant stimuli. So it's very, very hard, very, very hard to focus in on what is an intuitive insight as opposed to just like another beep notification. So in order to help our manifestation practice, we have to strengthen our intuition. A couple ways to do that, and you've heard all of this before, I'm sure, but I want to reiterate it in a way that relates it to intuition, Number one, meditation and breathing. I know it seems like you have to do 20 minutes of meditation every day in order for it to work, but you really don't. It could just be a couple of deep breaths in the car before work or at your desk before you work if you work from home. A simple moment to bring yourself back into your body with a deep breath and just feeling your breath expand your rib cage. And as you exhale, contract your rib cage. It just brings you back into your body to help you hear and recognize your internal cues, which we're going to talk about more later. Okay. Journaling and reflection, always great. I recommend for every single client, every coaching client, executive coaching client that I have, to journal, as Julia Cameron from The Artist Way, she wrote The Artist Way, as she recommends, which is really just like a stream of consciousness. So you don't have to be a good writer, which is the great part of it. And also, sometimes it's harder for a good writer to do this because they want to structure it, but just a page every day, preferably in the morning. She calls it morning pages. And I've done it. It's so wonderful. It really helps to just kind of, it's almost like a brain dump. If you have ADHD, maybe you've heard of doing a brain dump before, but it really just kind of, it's like just that. It's a brain dump. Like you're just like getting everything out in a way that has no rules, no boundaries, no expectations. And it kind of clears the palette of your mind to go about the day in this really like clean, clear way. And it's wonderful. And that having that clarity, especially at the beginning of the day, helps for you to understand when your intuition kind of peaks up, right? Because we don't have all of that like extra like random stuff that's bogging us down kind of like in the back of our mind where it's like, I have to get the kids at 2 or what are they going to make for dinner? Like it's just all of that already got out on the page. And it sounds so simple and it is, but it works. Also, while you are doing these journaling processes, I would also recommend starting to review like past experiences where either your intuition was right or also where it was wrong and why. Like what signs kind of came up during either of those instances. And the more you fine tune your mind to recognize, even from past experiences, like, oh, that was actually like, that was something that I just kind of like knew was going to happen. How did I know that? It primes your mind to then recognize it before it happens or as it's happening. So that's a really, really, really easy way to strengthen your intuition. And again, this can be like for 5 minutes in the morning. And I know I say that it's really hard, especially if you have crazy mornings, but you can try it in the morning. If the mornings don't work for you, if you're like, I am sick and fucking tired of people telling me to wake up early, then do it at night. Also works. Also great to do before bed because then you're not laying there having it just like a hamster wheel in your mind of like anxiety and, all things. So morning or night is what I would recommend. Another great way to strengthen your intuition, and this is probably the most immediate way, in my experience anyway, in my lived experience, is starting with really small decisions and zoning in on hell yes, hell no, or not yet. So if you're familiar with human design, and we have a wonderful guest, Jess Bibico, who is on the podcast and she's a human design expert and she talks a lot about hell yes, hell no, or not yet when it is in reference to Manny Gens for human design. But I am a Manny Gen. So maybe that's why it really resonates with me. But I've had other people practice this who aren't, and they seem to really get something out of it. So basically, like, if you are having trouble making a decision, stop and think to yourself, is this a hell yes? If it is, great. Is this a hell no? Then it's a no. And if you're like, I don't know, that's why I can't make the decision, then it's a not yet, which by the way, I feel like that usually ends up being a hell no. But every now and then it will turn and be a hell yes. But I think that's a really just a good way to kind of take yourself out of analysis paralysis. Like, okay, stop. Is this a hell yes? Okay. Is it a hell fucking no? Or is it not yet? I can't make that decision right now. Not yet. It's not that important right now. It's not time sensitive. Not yet. And come back to it later and try it again. I think that is one of the most immediate ways to work on strengthening your intuition. I also want to talk a little bit about reducing stimuli because in this world, everything is stimuli, right? And one of the easiest ways to do that is to get out of your sympathetic nervous system into your parasympathetic nervous system. So that can either be going to a yoga class because that is what yoga is about, or just going and sitting in nature. There was something about, oh my gosh, and I'm just thinking of this now as I record, but I remember hearing this. I was like, oh, that is so crazy. So apparently the sound of chirping birds helps to regulate our nervous system because back when we were, caveman days, birds only chirp when they feel safe. So they're not going to chirp if there are predators around. So chirping birds was a sign to our nervous system that we could chill and that we could just relax and soften and be and not have to worry about predators. So being in nature, and especially if you can hear birds chirping, is such a great way to just down regulate your nervous system and be in the moment and just take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, and relax that nervous system, which will then help you be more in the moment to recognize what are intuitive insights and what are not. That leads me to my next point, which is active listening. Active listening is something, if you've ever taken an acting class, the main thing that they first teach you in acting class is acting is reacting. And the best actors are actually the best listeners because you cannot react appropriately to anyone or any stimuli if you are not listening to it, actually listening to it, actively listening to it. If you can train yourself to start to actively listen, you'll notice that all of a sudden you're connecting with people a lot better. And you are more in the moment and you're picking up more intuitively on things that are happening without even recognizing it. So by actively listening, you're essentially training yourself to be more attuned to both external and internal cues, which is fundamental in developing and trusting your intuition. And it creates a more receptive state of mind where intuitive insights are more likely to surface and be recognized. So if you hear that and you're like, okay, I obviously want to be a better listener. Who doesn't want to be a better listener, right? But if you have a lot of trouble, if you notice when you're talking to someone that you tend to sort of get really excited and interrupt them, but you're not doing it with any malcontent or anything like that. You just are excited and you're an extrovert and you like to talk and you like to be part of the convo and whatever. That is great. And I love that excitement. And I fell privy to that too. I get really excited when I talk to people. And one way to help yourself become a better listener and a more active listener is there's a little anagram, I think that's what it's called, that I like to use for those types of people who really like to like piggyback on what people say. And they're like, yes, 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 yes. And then and you kind of realize like it all of a sudden kind of turns into like their show, right? Like they're kind of stealing the spotlight. So if you're the type of person who is well-meaning, well-intentioned, but you tend to kind of like get overly excited in a conversation and it ends up being all about you, and not in a mean way. It just kind of happens that way because you're overly excited. I love the excitement. Keep going with it. But I want you to, this is so cheesy. I want you to wait, WAIT. So recognize that you want to talk. Just recognize that that's a thing. You want to talk. First step is self-awareness, right? That's W, want. A, appreciate. Stop and just appreciate that the other person has not finished yet. Let them finish, okay? I, inhale. Take a big breath. Not so noticeable that it stops the other person from talking, but take a big breath to help ground yourself, bring yourself back into your body, kind of help temper that excitement a little bit, and then tag, right? So wait for them to tag you. A conversation should be like a game of tag or a game of tennis, right? Where it's like, okay, tag, you're it. Now it's your turn to talk and respond. Not just talk about like whatever it is that's going on in your head, but talk as a tag team, right? So tag, you're it. What do you think about this concept, right? Obviously, we all know how a conversation works. I'm just being very, very basic right now, but wait, right? Want, recognize that you want to talk. It's okay. You're excited. A, appreciate that the other person has not finished yet and they get to finish. I, inhale, take a big breath, just come back to your body, ground yourself for a second. And T, tag, you're it. Now it's your time to go. And here's the last thing about intuition that I'm going to get back to, but intuition should be easy. Once you learn how to strengthen it, and once you learn how to recognize that it's happening, intuition becomes very, very noticeable and it should be easy. Manifestation is relatively easier to understand, right? It's just the core concept behind manifestation is the idea that thoughts and beliefs can directly influence external reality, right? So if you've ever heard of the law of attraction, you create your own reality. And we see there are some coaches that are they're like manifestation coaches and they teach just this and their lives are basically their proof that it works, right? Which is amazing. And if you're really into it, I would suggest like go out and find just a manifestation coach if that's like the thing that you've been really having an issue with. But let's just go a little bit deeper into it here. The main thing that everybody knows about manifestation, even if you only know like 1% about manifestation, is be super, super clear, right? And it's true. So clear intention setting, which is different than goal setting. I think that is where a lot of people get hung up, right? They'll have these like a list of goals, and that's cool. I love goal setting. A goal is a little bit different than intention. A goal is an end, right? Intention is more of like a feeling, if you will. So, for example, a goal would be, I want to get a raise. Okay. Be really clear about it. I want to get a 20 grand raise by the end of 2024. Okay. That's pretty clear, right? But there's no intention. What is the intention? That you want to make more money, and why? And that's where you can go into like the five whys. So if you're not familiar with the five whys, if you want something, ask yourself why 5 times. So why do you want to make 20 grand more? Because I want to go on a vacation. Why do you want to go on a vacation? Because I hate my job. Why do you hate your job? Because I don't make enough money. So you just kind of like go down the whole thing. But setting a really clear intention. So the difference would be, as opposed to saying, I want to make 20 grand, an intention would be, I want to live a life that I enjoy and not have to worry about money. That's my intention. I don't want to have to worry about money. Okay. And then you get clearer. I don't want to have to worry about buying groceries. I don't want to have to worry about paying my kids' tuition. I don't want to, and you get really, really clear. And also, I think the difference between how I like to manifest anyway, and what I read a lot about with manifestation is we're leaving a little bit of room for flexibility. So a lot of the things I've read about manifestation are very, very like hardcore, if you will. So it's like you have to have the clearest vision and you have to see it very clearly. Okay, I understand why. However, I would say have a really good idea, have a great idea about it. And that's where the intention is. Intentions aren't super clear, right? They're kind of more of a feeling. A goal is super clear. So you can make super clear goals, but your intentions don't need to be as clear because they're just a feeling. Like you want to feel good. That's a great intention. I would say just leave a little bit of room for flexibility because a lot of the time when we make a very, very clear goal, or if we set a very, very clear intention and we start going down the path towards it, right? But life is life. Life is inevitably going to throw curveballs. Usually by the time we get to, let's just say, a happy place, it doesn't look anything like the goal that we wrote down. And if it does, the way that we got there was definitely not the way that we thought we were going to get there. I mean, I don't know if I've ever met anybody who has had a linear path towards a goal on the timeline that they said. And if they did, then fuck, they're really good at manifestation and go employ them as your manifestation coach, right? But most of us, I would say that's a rarity. And that, one person that comes to mind, Jim Carrey, he wrote down his little on a check. He wrote down on a check that he wanted to make a certain amount of money by an end date, and he did. So what I would be interested in to know with him is like, did it happen the way you thought it was going to happen? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. However, okay, that's like a whole tangent, but get as clear as you can, but leave room for flexibility. That's what I'm getting at. So setting that clear intention, not a goal, but an intention. And we could go into the difference between intention and goal setting more. If you're interested in that, you can just leave a comment on YouTube or on Instagram or LinkedIn. We can go into that. But going forward, just get as clear as you can, leaving room for a little bit of flexibility, leaving room for a little bit of magic, right? Okay, positive thinking and visualization. This is like the best exercise. Okay. I'm so excited. If you've never done this, this is like a game changer. And I don't say that lately. I've had clients do this. I've had friends do it and they're like, ooh, this is really cool. Like what a crazy mindset shift. So we've all heard about visualization and vision boards and all that stuff, which is great. But if you're like, I've done that and it doesn't fucking work. I've done so many vision boards. I've done the journal, like I've done it and it's just not working. And now I'm losing faith in this whole manifestation thing, right? I get it. This is what you do. So make a vision board. No, just kidding. Instead of writing, this will happen or this is happening, like in the present tense, which is what I think we've heard now people say. Like you should be writing as if it's happening or as if it already happened. We've heard that too. I love that. I want you to go a little bit further with it and write it as if you're 95 years old and you're looking back on your life and you're telling your grandkids or your grandnieces and nephews what your life was like and what you did. So an example from my point of view would be when I was 35, I started a company that ended up being incredibly successful. It took a little bit longer than I thought, but I did it. I had amazing clients, and I got to make my own money as a woman, as a mom. And it was really great. And I ended up being, doing all the things that I wanted to do. And I got to be a role model for my daughter and my son. They got to see a working mom who also ran her own business, who was also able to drop them off from school every day and pick them up from school every day. And I got to take vacation whenever I wanted to because I owned the business, something like that. Not all of that is true. I embellish, you know, that is the gist. So, as if you're 95 and you've lived the life you dream about, that you're currently dreaming about, you've already lived it and you're just telling someone you love all about this like amazing life that you took, that you decided on, that you chose, and write it like that. That is the best manifestation tip anybody ever gave me and that I am now giving to you and paying it forward. Okay. This is a big one for manifestation: emotional alignment with the desired outcome. So basically, it won't work if it's somebody else's dream. So if you are working towards something that, and I don't mean this in a mean way for anybody, but like, let's say your spouse is really wants to get, I don't know, something, a boat. And you're like, yeah, that would be cool. Like, I could see myself in a boat. Like, yeah, a boat sounds really nice. I don't know anything about boats, but it sounds really cool. And so you're like working and you're trying to make a little bit of extra money so you guys can buy this boat together. And all of a sudden it kind of becomes like your dream together. And like they're a little bit more excited about it than you are. And it just ends up being kind of like hard. Like, I don't really want to I don't want to take that shift. I don't want to do an extra project at work. That's probably because you don't really want the boat, to be honest, because it's not your dream. So it becomes pretty obvious when the emotional alignment is out of whack. Manifestation only works if it's your dream. And that can be, you can have the same dream. That's ideal with a partner, right? But it's not going to work if it's somebody else's dream. And that goes for careers as well, right? So if it's like your parents' dream for you to be a doctor, but you don't want to be a doctor, that might be a really hard and lonely path. But if you want to be a doctor, then it might still be a hard path, but it will feel worth it. So that's a big difference. And okay, the last thing I'm going to say just about manifestation is a belief in the possibility of the outcome. So that kind of harkens back to self-doubt. Hello, self-doubt. So you have to believe it will happen as if it already did, which goes back again to the 95-year-old exercise. You just have to believe that it will happen as if it already did and say, peace out, self-doubt. And a little tip for how to do this, because self-doubt is just always there. Get 5% more Delulu and see what happens. You don't have to be like the crazy lady who's talking about, crazy guy who's talking about, the mansion that you're going to buy on the beach to everybody when you are making like 30 grand a year. You can, if you're cool with that, go for it. But if you're like, I don't want people to think I'm that crazy, that's fine. Just get like 5% more Delulu and see what happens. So what would that look like? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you tell your best friend, I'm going to get a Mercedes by the end of 2025. By the end of 2025, something's going to happen and I'm going to get a Mercedes by the end of 2025. It's going to be great. I'm going to get a really good price on it. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but it is. It's happening. It already happened. It sounds crazy, but just see. I mean, if you talk about it with friends and family that love you, what's the worst that could happen? They're just going to be like, okay, I want what you're having because what a great mindset. And if they think you're crazy, then let them think you're crazy. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so now that we have a pretty solid idea of what intuition is and what manifestation is, I'm going to tell you a quick little story about how they work so seamlessly together. And when they do, it is unbelievably obvious. Okay, so as I start to tell this story, you will see why I have AD. Okay, I want to go back really quickly to what I said earlier. Intuition should be easy. So keep that in mind while I tell this story. Basically, it starts with a vision board. I had a vision board. I think I started it or I made it in 2020 or 2021. I made it in 2021 and I was so over living in Florida. We had just come out of COVID. I had 2 babies during COVID. COVID was a lot. Anyway, I found this house on Zillow in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, which is where my husband and I got married. One of my best friends lives there. It's just this really amazing town that's like, it's coastal, it's country, it's like the best weather in the summer and fall, and it's beautiful. And I don't know what it is about it, but I love it there. And that's enough for me. I don't need to know why, I just love it there. And this house was just perfect. It had a giant backyard. It was close to beaches, but not too close that, up north, sometimes the beaches kind of smell weird. It was just perfect. It had these ginormous gates at the beginning of the driveway that were from the original Vanderbilt horse farm. So if you don't know anything about Newport, Rhode Island and Portsmouth, Rhode Island, it's very, very, it's like steeped in history with the most wealthy families from like the Gilded Age. So like the Vanderbilts, the Astors, they all had these like cottages, these Newport cottages, which were ginormous mansions in Newport, Rhode Island. And if you ever go there, there's something called the Cliff Walk and you can walk and see them. Anyway, it's just a great town. And I saw this post on Zillow and I was like, that's really cool, beautiful, amazing. I want that house. And we're not in the market. So I don't know why why I even would think to like print it out and smack it on my vision board. But I did. It sold, obviously. And a couple years went by. We're now in 2024. And at the beginning of 2024, my husband finally caved and he was like, okay, let's go up north for the summer. I know you hate the summer here in Florida because it's really, really hot. It's like, do it. And we were kind of in between a town in Massachusetts and Newport. I don't remember exactly why, but it was really, really hard to find an Airbnb in this little town or in a couple of different little towns in Massachusetts. And we found one and we were like, okay, it's fine. Like we can deal. But then, we were like, why? Why would we just deal for like 2 weeks in this little random town that we have no connection to? But I just kind of thought it would be like nice because it's near some of my friends. Why would we do that when we clearly know we want to go to Newport? Intuition, right? That's how simple it is, really. So we have manifestation with the vision board and that intuition, right? So I think we were between Lexington, Massachusetts and Newport. And my husband and I just were like, this is stupid. We're obviously, let's just go to Newport. Yeah, it's a bit longer drive to my friends, but let's just do it. To some of my friends, one friend lives there. So, I mean, that was kind of great. Anyway, we get there. We find an amazing Airbnb with this beautiful front yard that was like really, really big for the dogs and the kids to run. And it was wonderful. So we get there and I will never forget this. I will never forget this. My parents were up there and we got settled into the Airbnb. My parents came over to see the kids and us. And we started talking. I think I must have mentioned that we were going to look at a house that was for sale just for fun. And my stepmom, Sharon, she was like, oh, interesting. That's really interesting. And I was like, yeah. And then I just blurted out to her, which I hadn't even like thought of in my mind, really, that I hadn't processed it in my mind or in my body, but I just threw this statement out. And I said, yeah, I think we're going to buy something before we go back to Florida. And she looked at me and she was like, really? I was like, yeah, I think we're going to buy something before we go back. She was like, okay. And I was also like, okay. Like, it was like I had two different Courtneys and one was like, yep, this is happening. And the other one was like, you're crazy. So fast forward, so by the way, that is manifestation and intuition together, right? So I put it out into the universe. I said it out loud for the universe to hear. And it was also there's just this like intuitive insight that just came and like came out of my mouth. I did not think about it before I said it. I have no idea where it came from. It was just like this hunch, this gut feeling that was going to happen. Okay. We looked at a bunch of houses. We were like, you know what? We're definitely going to buy a house here at some point. Not now. Definitely not now because, everything's a little bit like everything that we really like is a little bit out of our price range. We're not really ready for it yet. Like we wouldn't be able to come up and use it. We'd have to furnish it. So let's just get a feel for what the market is up here, what the real estate market is up here. So we started to look at houses. We found a wonderful real estate agent who like took us anywhere we wanted to go on the island. And that, my friends, is inspired action. So that is manifestation in action. We physically put ourselves in actual houses in the place that we wanted to get a house. Okay. It is that simple. So if you want to buy a house anywhere, it doesn't have to be in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, but anywhere, go to open houses. You don't have to bother anybody. You don't have to bother any real estate agent. You can just go to open houses. Even if it's like way out of your price range, just go. Imagine yourself using the kitchen as if it's yours. Imagine the bathroom. Imagine like taking a shower in that amazing bathroom. That's manifestation. It's so fun. You can make it fun. It doesn't have to be like another thing on your to-do list. Okay. So anyway, we were going to all of these houses, and then there was this open house one day. We didn't know what we were going to do with the kids. And my husband was like, yeah, there's that open house at that house, that you saw on Zillow. Do you want to go to it? I'm like, yeah, sure. It was right down like 2 minutes from our Airbnb. So super easy. Again, intuition is easy. And we went to it, and it was new construction, which who doesn't love a new construction? It was on 6 acres of protected land. So nobody can build on it. It was next to a farm, a pumpkin patch farm. Like, are you kidding me? Fall dreams. And at the end of cul-de-sac. So if you have kids, the end of a cul-de-sac is like prime, especially if you have little kids, right? Oh my God. It was perfect. It was so perfect. And we were like, okay, this is crazy. So we went with our kids, which we also like, we never do that. But I think also it was like we saw our kids in it, and we were like, oh, this could really work. Like, is this happening? Is this working? So I brought the kids back to the car. My husband gets into the car and he's like, I need to go back in. And he was like, I was trying to get him on board with the whole, like, we're doing this. We're buying another house. We're going to do it. And he's like, I have to go back in. So he goes back in. He's in there for like 20 minutes. And I am gladly trying to figure out how to entertain these children, because I knew the fact that he was in there for that long, it's a good sign. Anyway, like, fast forward, we go back to see it, and the builder's there, and he's like taking us all around. He knows everything about this house, and he built it, right? And we're outside looking at the house from the outside, at the top of the driveway. And it's a pretty long driveway. And up in that part of the country, they use gravel a lot on the driveway. And he looks to his real estate agent and goes, oh yeah, I got it. And she's like, oh my gosh, is that what this is? And she points to the top of a rock where there's 2 samples of gravel. And he's like, yeah, I just went by and I snagged some. And I go, what are you guys talking about? And he's like, oh, it's like a long story, but there's this house that has gravel, and I really liked it, and I couldn't figure out like where they got it from. So I just went and I like, I took it. They have these big gates, so I couldn't get in. And I was like, big gates, where is it? And he was like, oh, it's right on, yeah. He's like, yeah, you know what? Don't worry about it. And I was like, no, where is it? He's like, it was right on, the corner of this road and that road. And I was like, oh, and I said the address, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, wait. And I told him this whole story. I was like, that house has been on my vision board. We like did so much research on that house. We were trying to figure out how to like make the people move from it. Like if we could make them an offer, like we went through it, like we wanted that house. And he's like, no, this gravel is from that house. And that's the gravel we're using on this house's driveway. Gravel. I mean, like, that is a sign from even the builder, who is like this little Italian guy from Providence, Rhode Island with the thickest New England accent, was like, are you serious? That's a sign. It was like, I know. And every single person I talk to is like, you have to be making that up. Like, you're shitting me. No, that happened. And I was like, that's it. It was the first time in my life. It really was the first time in my life that I felt everything like it was just a slap in the face from the universe, like a friendly slap in the face from the universe. Like, look, this is something. All of that work and energy that you put in towards this desire and intention, here it is. This is it. Everything will work out. And then, throughout the whole closing process and negotiations, of course, like things like come up. And there was a moment when we were like, we don't know if we're going to get this house. Like, I don't know if this is like in our price range, really. And it was like, we locked in a mortgage rate on a random day that it went down. Everything worked out. Everything worked out. So the reason I'm not like bragging about this house that we got, I'm just saying like, this is such a perfect example of listening to your intuition and manifesting. And when they come together, it is so obvious. It's so obvious that you cannot ignore it. You can't. And that is that. That is the end. That's the end of my rant. So I just want to go back. Manifestation it's pointless if you don't know where you want to go. And most people don't know where they want to go. But if you think of a map and you have all these little stops on a map and they're not in order, right? It's just like a random map. If you don't know where you want to go, the map is useless. It's useless if you don't know where north is. So manifestation is a map. Intuition is the compass. It will guide you to where you want to go if you can read it correctly, if you can recognize your little intuitive insights that seem like nothing, but they're something. If you can recognize them, your manifestation game goes up. Like it just elevates. It's like a whole new echelon of manifestation. So just start trying to really home in on what your little intuitive insights are for you, where you feel it in your body, or maybe you get like a tingle, or, maybe it's not in your body. Maybe it is just like random thoughts that come up and you're like, that's weird. Where did that come from? Came from somewhere, right? And of course we have random thoughts all the time. We have so many thoughts a day that not every thought is going to be an intuitive thought. But if it resonates and if it's something that you're like, it's so weird, why did I think about that? Probably an intuitive insight. Start journaling, do the 95-year-old exercise, like do all those things and just see what works for you. See, and let me know. I'm so sure that intuition and manifestation can help you and can help anybody in their pursuit of happiness. And if it does help you, please leave in the comments how it helped you and what you did. Developing intuition is a personal journey and it takes time. So try any technique, comment on, Instagram or on my LinkedIn. My Instagram is at Courtney Austin Page. It's also at resume.careers. And let me know. Thank you so much for listening to this. Again, I could talk about intuition and manifestation forever. So there it is. Thank you so much. Have a great 2 weeks. We do bi-weekly episodes now. So 2 a month. One is with a guest and one is a solo. And keep an eye out for that human design episode with Jess Bubico. She's amazing. And feel free to check out the first episode of season 2 with Alessandra Veronesi from Holy Shiver. I love that name. And she is also the author of A New Banana. And it's so great. Somebody actually texted me the other day after that episode went out and was like, this was such a great episode. I bought the book and it's amazing. So thank you so much. And I hope that you resume well in everything in life. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Resume Well, where we explore the intersection of wellness, woo, and work. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends, family, and coworkers. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page and on LinkedIn either at Courtney Page or at Resume Recruiting and Development. Join us next week, and in the meantime, resume well in everything you do.